all. Marvin here from Blacktop Banter. Really quick, just wanted to talk about the 800 Pavement Network. As you can see, we have some lettering there, lettering on our other truck over there, lettering on this truck here. They all say 1-800-Blacktop. We've been using the 1-800-Blacktop number here for the last couple years. It's really been exceptional for us as far as making things click with our branding, and now that we're in another state, those area codes are together. It's worked out fantastically for us. The other thing is that 800 Pavement Network has other advantages. There's group discounts on a lot of the products and materials that we use within our industry. We're part of over 300 different, see that one? Over 300 different contractors that are now using these numbers all over the country. That's combined over $2 billion in gross profits. So if you've been thinking about it or you're curious about it and you're like, well, no, should I or shouldn't I? DM me, message me, or reach out to 800 Pavement Network. You can find them online through their website. You can call 1-800-Pavement and you'll get them as well. They'd be happy to run you through kind of the advantages and everything else that we've been taking advantage of here at Wiscote and Dubuque Asphalt Maintenance, and how it can benefit you as well. Once again, if you're curious about it at all, you can always DM me. So yeah, 1-800-Blacktop. You can DM me or message me or email me through the podcast or Wiscote or wherever as well. I would love to talk to you about how it has helped us. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another episode of Blacktop Banter, and this is episode 93. We're closing in on 100, and we are actually we're at the beginning of January. We're closing in on our Expo conference season, and this will air mid to late January. But yeah, it's a new year. Why not kick it off with a new topic and something we haven't talked before and a new guest? And we've been mixing it up quite a bit. And I know you guys heard Spencer Boyd on the last one talking about his new year and what they're going to be doing on pavement. I thought maybe we would talk about what we're going to be doing within pavement and asphalt. So without further ado, I want to introduce my friend Shawn Boyce. Shawn, you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Hey, good afternoon, Marvin. Yeah, my name is Shawn Boyce. Work with Brothers Paving and Concrete. Been in the industry almost 30 years now. It'll be 30 years. Actually, it's 29 years to be exact, but close enough.
You start rounding up. You start rounding up to the fives or rounding down to the fives after a while, buddy.
Yeah, that's actually right. But yeah, no, I've been in it a long time. So with that being said, I've made every mistake that can be made so far. You know, it's pretty fun. I enjoy the industry. I got a passion for it. On my personal life, I've got 4 sons and a daughter, 29, 27, 25. I'm sorry, 30, 28, 26, 24 are my sons, and my daughter's 21. And yeah, I can't even remember the birthdays anymore, but been married 31 years. It's a wild ride.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, but I, you know, again, I love this industry. I love the people in this industry. I love helping people get better. That's kind of my passion.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where we've crossed paths, you know, over the last few years is at different conferences, different events, online, and kind of being able to help each other out a little bit or chime in here or there, just general support. Like it's a big deal in this industry for people to put themselves out on social media to begin with and then start putting content out there. But just general support helps out a ton. It actually keeps people going sometimes. And sometimes that's when they either become themselves, right, or find themselves or their purpose or whatever. And one thing that I've always been attracted to is when people genuinely support something that helps people, right? And you and I have kind of been in this loop of a few in people in the industry that have influence that really embrace technology, right, and how it helps us be more efficient and better at what we do. let's kind of talk about a little bit of your industry history, because that's going to be one of the bigger things. And kind of tell us like how you got started. Brothers is becoming an iconic brand in the industry when it comes to contractors. Let's kind of touch on that a little bit and give some background about asphalt.
So I'll give you the pre-story before I got into asphalt to kind of lead you where I'm at.
Perfect.
Um, so I owned an archery shop when I was young, really young. I was just too dumb to know any better, and I just jumped in and started. We sold bait and tackle and archery. I've always been I loved archery. Always done that, and so I did that for about 2 years.
What
And
brand? Can I ask you what brand?
back in those days, it was High Country. So High Country was the brand back in the early 90s, late 80s. Most of the world championships were won with High Country bows. So I was real big into that. But anyways, I mean, they've kind of, went away.
Yeah.
I now shoot Obsessions. I love Obsessions. I have Expeditions. I've got a bunch of different bows, but
Yeah.
I still
You got
still love
bows
them.
like I have guitars. Like when
Yeah, I have a whole wall full. They're just, and I don't know why I have so many, but anyway, my wife says the same thing. Why do you have so many? You can only shoot one at a time.
Mhm.
I'm like, well, you know what? You only need one color nail polish too, so let's just leave me alone.
That's right. That's right.
But so anyways, so I started that. After a couple of years, I had a partner, and there just wasn't enough revenue for two people
Mhm.
to do it, especially we were a startup. So I sold him my half of the company, and I was sitting in church one day, and this gentleman came and introduced himself, and I was in the foyer. This guy, his name's Paul Batista, and he introduces himself, and about, I don't know, half hour later, he comes back and he talks to me. He goes, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm not doing anything right now. I just sold my business. I'm just trying to figure things out." I was pretty young. And he goes, "You want a job?" I said, "Sure." Well, I didn't even know what the job was. I had no clue, but in those days, I didn't care. I mean, if it
Right.
made money, I was happy. So he goes, "I'll pick you up on Monday morning." That was Sunday. So he picks me up, and we drive around in his truck. And we go and we stop, and I listen to him talking to people on the phone, and we jump out and we measure parking lots, old school with the
Yeah.
wheels,
Oh
right?
yeah.
like we still should be doing sometimes,
The
but
clicking
anyway,
ones, right? Click, click,
the clicking ones, yeah, the clicking ones.
click. Yep.
So I started doing that, and we drove around for about a week. And after the end of the week, he looks at me and goes, "So what do you think?" I said, "What do I think about what?" He says, "The job." I said, "Doing what?" He goes, "What we just been doing." I said, "That's the job? You mean, so you're telling me all we do is we go out there and we measure parking lots and we talk to customers on the phone, and then we call this subcontract guy and give him the squares, and he gives us a price for it, and we mark it up 20%, and then we sell it to the customer?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Dude, that's the easiest job I've ever had in my life." Well, that's my my stupidity, right?
Right.
You know, but at that point I said, "You know what? I can do this. This really fits my personality." And back in those days, we didn't have our own crews.
Right.
Um, and we were actually working for a company named Dominion Paving. So
Okay.
Paul and I were both working employees at Dominion Paving. So we did that for 2 years. I learned how to stripe during those 2 years that I was over there, because I was with the striping crews.
Right.
Every morning I would meet the crews. I would make sure the parking lots were blocked off. And I'm not one to just sit there and watch. Even though I didn't have to, I would jump out. I would snap chalk lines. I would measure it out. I would lay out. I would get the stencils ready. I'd peel the paint off. I'd fill their machines. And they would sometimes let me stripe. So I was like, "Oh, this is cool." So I got really good at striping
Yep.
during those 2 years. Well, that leads to where I ended up. So at that point, I'm like, you know what? There's a career here for me. I can stripe. I can go do these parking lots. I make more money in one night than I do all week working as an estimator for this paving company. So I went First Virginia Bank, I still remember it, and got a $5,000 loan, which I was surprised they gave me because I was a poor kid with no collateral, but they gave me a $5,000 loan. I had a little Nissan pickup truck and a trailer, and I got a machine, a set of stencils, and we started striping.
Crazy.
And that's how I got into the business. And then about 6 months later, Paul ended up resigning from Dominion Paving as well.
Okay.
Coming to me, and he said, "Hey, man, I just resigned. I want you to come on as a salesperson for me." I said, "Man, I already got my striping company rolling." He said, "Yeah, but I really think you need to be working over here with me." I said, "Well, how is this going to look? Are we going to?" He goes, "Very simple. You sell anything you sell, you get to stripe, or anything we sell as a company, you get to stripe." So it was a win-win.
Oh, good.
I got paid as a salesman, and I had my striping company.
Yep.
It started getting more than I could do myself, so I hired people to do the striping part. I became more full-time sales. We did that for a couple years. Paul's original partner ended up wanting to sell his half of the company. He offered it to me, so Paul bought some, I bought some, and that was the marriage between Paul and I at Brothers Paving and Concrete.
Cool, man. That's a cool story. Yeah, dude. It always ends up being a moment, right? Where they're like, "Yep, I've got the truck, got this, got the machine," and that's how it started. And then whether it's somebody getting a seal coat rig, or whether it's I'm getting a line striper, like that's how it started. Almost every single time, the trajectory goes differently. Like some people would have built that striping company into a pavement maintenance company, and then that went into a paving company or did whatever. Or they say, "Well, we just striped, and then I bought another striper with another truck and another trailer, and all we did was stripe, and now we are the largest striper in wherever," right? But there's all these other little opportunities and scenarios that can happen within the asphalt industry by just getting in there and getting started and getting moving in it. And that's crazy. I never heard that story from you before. That's one of the best stories I've heard so far. I mean, that's a pretty big chunk. And how long have you been associated with Brothers then, Shawn?
So that was 95 is when I left, or 90 first part of 96, January 96 is when we left Dominion Paving.
Okay.
And that's when I started my striping company, Straight Line Striping, pretty original name, right?
Oh, there you go.
So I started that. And then Paul started Brothers. It was back in those days, it was called Brothers Paving and Sealing. And he started that in the beginning of 96 as well. Wow. So it was probably 98 before I jumped on and became a partner. And
it's a high end in the 20s. We're talking 26, 27, 28 years, somewhere around.
A long time. Long time.
Yeah. That's why we round up to 5 years, because you start stringing just years together when you talk about it. So whatever happened with Straight Line?
So I ran that
for a while. You're like, get rid of this.
I ran it for 17 years.
Whoa.
I ran Straight Line Striping for 17 years. Had, very good foremen, very good people that have worked for me while I was doing
at Brothers.
Oh, while I was helping build Brothers, Paul and I, into what it is today. So it was a lot of sleepless nights, and I would work full time, and then I would come home and do the bills for Straight Line, and I sold that about 7-8 years ago, probably. But we still use them as a subcontractor. They've changed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So at Brothers, we still use them.
You get a little nostalgia sometimes when or what?
Well, fortunately, but unfortunately, it's my family that runs it over there. So I've got a brother that is probably one of the best in the industry. He is really, really, I'm not saying that just because he's my brother. He's really good. Now he's hard to deal with.
Oh yeah, that's because he's your brother.
Because he's my brother.
I got 5 of them. I know.
Oh my heavens, it's fun, but so they still strike for us, and we subcontract out, and it just took the headache away from me. And that's kind of just one of these things where sometimes you don't know until you have a conversation with somebody, right? And you're like, oh,
Man, that's how it worked. Oh man, that's a lot of years. Like that's a lot of grinding. That's a lot of coming back, paying the bills, and then going to Brothers, taking care of all that. The opportunity is there, but here's the thing: like you got to work. It's still an industry that, even though it has an easier barrier to entry to get into, you still got to work. Like you got to work a lot, and you got to work, and you're going to be stressed, right? Like it's the way it works within the industry. One thing that I really enjoy is that background and experience that you have in the industry, and like you said, you made all the mistakes in the world, right? That you can make within 30 years in order to get to that point. That those are the kind of leaders, the kind of people that come into leadership roles within the industry, and that has led to you speaking. Right, we were both at one of the Ignite conference that was in Florida. And people start to pick our brains, and then we start having conversations, kind of like the conversation we're having now. One thing is that's always been a staple for us, has been the National Pavement Expo, and this year you speak at the National Pavement Expo. Touch on that a little bit. I don't want to hack the name of it, but it was making your sense make sense or something like that. What was it?
You're pretty close. It only makes sense to know your sense.
There we go.
And yeah, so I've gotten into a lot of consulting over the last probably 10 years. I do a lot of consulting with other paving companies to try to help them get better. And so we about, I guess it's been, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, NPE, they called me and asked me to speak on job costing. And of course, I've never done anything like that, speaking in front of a couple hundred people. I'm good with a few in a room, but a couple hundred is just not my thing. But yeah, it is what it is.
There's only 50,000 listening to this right now. So
Oh, hey, it's all good.
Oh, great. Oh, great.
It's all good. But anyways, so NP asked me to speak on this, and I put a nice little class together, and I recruited Paul Batista, who is, that's my wingman. I mean,
That's right.
he's got, so on the business side, he's probably the most knowledgeable person in our industry. He really is. He graduated from the OPM program at Harvard a couple years back. He's really good. Now he understands, the black rocks and the seal coat, but he also understands business. So I brought him on the part. So I bring our course up to where we're teaching people how to properly bid jobs, and then he takes it how to scale, right?
Oh, okay.
How do you take and scale?
Okay.
So I brought him in, and we did it, and they were, I guess they were impressed, because they asked us again and again to do it, and now I'm on the board for NPE for that. So
yeah.
So I teach that class, and I'm excited to do it. It'll be my 3rd year doing it.
Cool.
And
I'm excited for it. I mean, it for me, listen, man, I'm definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed. Right. I can have a conversation. I think it's because I'm so curious about everything, because I'm like, well, I don't want to be dumb forever. I'm going to ask all these questions a lot and try to figure it out and make it work better. But I ignorantly for a lot of years plowed through, right, with at Wisco, to just like, I always tell people I outworked my stupidity. Like I was like, all right, man, we're just going to make more money. I'm going to work harder because I'm screwing this up, screwing that up, screwing this up. And then one day I was thinking one day, like, well, man, one day I'm going to have to hire a salesperson. I don't want to be out here doing all this. So then I was asking one of our friends, I was like, well, how's that work? They're like, well, you just give them a percentage off of the net. I'm like per job? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay. What is my net? Right. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, I can get pretty close. And I was like, well, it's going to be, going to be within X amount or X amount. And the guy I was asking, like, no, like you need to figure it out like to the dollar. I'm like, I can't figure it out to the dollar. He's like, I can. You want to come with me? I'll show you. And I'm like, yes, I do. Yes, I do want to know how to do that. He's like, I'm not going to pay for a paperclip. If they want another paperclip, I'm not going to pay for it. So that really changed, honestly, Shawn. Like that was 2017. 2018, and I started making adjustments and really tracking what I did, and it all of a sudden it started to hurt sometimes when I would realize I was doing something dumb that was out of habit before. And I was like, oh shoot, that's going to take that margin down. Right. So can we kind of touch on that a little bit,
Yeah,
kind of about
yeah.
your course in that direction?
Most people do it just like you did for a long, they white knuckle through it.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how, I want to get into business. I'm ambitious. I want to do this. Oh crap, how do I price these jobs? Hey, contractor friend, what do you get per square foot or square yard? Hey,
Yeah.
what do you get per gallon of sealer, right? And we all start off with a little matrix, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna, if it's a driveway, we need to be at 30 cents a square foot, or if it's
Yep.
a parking lot, we need to be at 20 cents, right? So we
Yep.
start there. That's how we start. And then some years it works out where you have money left at the end of the year. And then there's some years that you get to the end of the year and the accountant's like, hey man, you owe all this in taxes, and oh crap, you didn't make any money.
That's right.
Right? Because people don't understand their costs, their real costs.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went ahead and I started like promoting this. Hey, we got to teach people how to do this,
Yeah.
how to understand every penny and count for it one way or the other. That doesn't mean you have to bid it as high as it's going to tell you to. You can still go into it saying, you know what, I'm just going to cover my overhead because it's wintertime and I'm okay with that. But at least know what your overhead is.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Understand. And it's not that hard. You get a P&L at the end of the year, right? You've got something from your tax accountant that's going to tell you how much money you spent other than your direct costs. And well, guess what? Let's capture that and let's put that onto every bid moving forward, as long as you're going to hit your budget number. If you're going to go below it, that number's got to be higher. If you're going to go above it, that number can be lower. But let's just start somewhere and let's get really daggone close. How many gallons of sealer? How many bags of sand? How many hours it's going to take for you to do it? What about your trucks? You're going to have to replace your trucks at some time, right?
That's right.
Oh, and are you going to charge them for what you paid for the truck 10 years ago? No, you're going to charge them for what the replacement cost is going to be.
That's right.
Because you're going to have to pay, you're going to have to buy a new one. So I became real passionate. If you can't tell, I become passionate about that. I just because I want to see people succeed, and I don't want to see people going belly up.
That's what I was going to say. Like it literally, if it's foreign to you, right? Which it was to me. I didn't realize I was going to be an entrepreneur coming up. Like I didn't even think about what I was going to be or what I was going to do. So I got into that part of it, and then all of a sudden realized like I had a truck breakdown. It blew a motor. And the year before that was my first 6-figure year. After that 6-figure year, that truck blew up, the motor blew, and it just about buried me. And I was like, how am I going to live my life and run my business when it's this fragile? It didn't feel this fragile, but buddy, it's this fragile because I didn't pay attention to what my profits and losses were and what my job costing were. And it looks good. At 6-figure looked good on paper. I was like, man, I can make money.
You've made it.
Did it. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I was like, whoa. And I was like, oh, shoot, this is not going to be good if we go this route. So, it's one of those things where, like you were saying, literally it can make or break you. One thing that I found is that creates a foundation as well for when you get a really good grasp on that. And then you start having conversations with other people that understand it as well. Then it shows you a range, right? Of, okay, I should be charging a little bit. I'm going to need to charge a little bit more for this type of work. And then how do I do that? I go off my foundation of what we are, who we are, what we bring to the table, plus where our job costs are. And I need to push our margin to what we'll go off your 30 cents. We need to go to 33 cents a square foot for what we do. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to cover this going into the future and put money in our pocket for everything else we want.
And I would add, it's probably more than going from 30 to 33. It's understanding where you're at and what your costs are. And is that job 1 mile from your shop? Is that job 1 hour from your shop? Right. Yeah. So that 33 cents. So if it really may be 40 cents if you're an hour away. Right. People get into this is my cost and this is where I have to be. And you end up losing money. If you bid cost plus, you will never lose money that way
Correct.
because you know what it's going to cost you to do it. And now you might say my margin needs to increase from 25% profit to 28%, and that's a good place to be. But that way you're not locked into a number that it holds you hostage.
Yeah, and then that's the thing. Most people, right? Like when they get a salesperson, they're like, "Yeah, we just charge 25 cents a square foot." Right.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, dude, you drove 2 hours of that one. And then this one was like a mile away. Like, and you lost the one a mile away, right? Because somebody else bid it at 23 cents a square foot and got the job, right? Because the customer went off a budget. And then you lost the one 2 hours away, right? Because you were way too high for a local contractor that was right there. Like it literally, it allows you not to make it foolproof, but it allows you to be very competitive the way that you want to be competitive. That's why I'm so big on marketing now and social media marketing and branding, because it's one of the only separators, no matter the size of your business, that can influence the customer to go for a higher margin
Absolutely.
company. Right. So once I figured all that out, my mush brain finally started to electronically shoot signals to the other side and connect the dots. And I was like, oh, okay, like you didn't make it. Like we got some years to go here, right? And we're going to connect it and really make it efficient. And I'm really excited. Like this year, last year was our biggest year. This year, I think, is going to be a huge goal number year for us. And not only that, Wisco's running efficiently enough now where we make more and I work in the field
Less.
less than I actually had to because these
Well,
things have been revealed to me. I'm smarter about what I'm doing.
the one thing I tell everybody, especially the guys I consult with, you don't need to practice anymore,
Well,
right?
yeah. Well, yeah.
We've practiced enough. It's time to make money. That's the only reason why we're here. Now, you don't want to overcharge people, of course,
Correct.
but you want to make sure that you're going to be able to sustain your lifestyle and your employees' lifestyle. And I should have said the employees first because they're the most important. Let's just be honest.
Right.
I mean, because there were days back when money was tight. Guess who got their paychecks first?
That's right. I mean,
Not me.
when you adopt the idea of you work for your employees, like everything changes.
Absolutely.
The way you
And you really do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You absolutely do. I think you once you get to a certain level, you have to, depending on what you want, you have to, right? If you're going to scale, you have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, and well, here's the other thing. It was definitely difficult when I did it all on paper, right? And even now, I run some of the numbers and stuff in my brain on paper, but most of the time I got a good grip on them. But now, as you and I talk about fairly often, technology is advancing. It's becoming really easy to put even simple forms of technology. Both of our good friend Tom does his iPad in the field class that has become iconic, right? It's going to be a staple until all of a sudden we don't have iPads anymore and we're just floating in the air doing whatever. But I think Tom will be on the front of that one there too. But before it was drones. Remember, like drones were a big deal. All of a sudden, these new cameras were in here, and then really what's kicked up a lot and what you have a good grasp on is software, bidding software that all of a sudden went from bidding and proposal software to actually in the field mapping, job costing. So the Pavement Soft software that you use is becoming one of the staples in the industry as well, because it has pretty near everything. Like I know Brandon Leone and I were looking at it in Florida, and he was like, dude, I like it because it goes real deep. And I was like, I like it because I'm not deep. I just want to use the simple stuff, right? So, can we touch on that a little bit and how software itself is becoming part of the industry, and then touch on Pavement Soft?
Sure. So we'll talk. We'll talk about the software first, and then we'll jump into Pavement Soft. So there are a lot of different softwares out there that can help you run your business.
Mm-hmm.
And any person that says that it's just a waste of time. My father did it this way, my grandfather this way, and we did okay, and we've been around for 75 years. It's just short-sightedness.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, there are so many things that you can utilize that's out there that'll make your life easier.
Yep. Yeah.
And and if it's easier, you're going to do more. And if you do more, you're going to make more.
That's
It's
right.
not that hard. And like I said, there's all kinds of them out there. You've got layers and ProMan this, and I mean, there's 10 different products out there, right? And they all do something. You know, you got jobbers and you've got all these other ones, you know, that industry specific, but they'll help. They'll help you somehow if you want to go down that road with them. To do nothing is so foolish.
Oh man, that's the same concept. I spoke 2018 Cleveland when we were there for MPE, and I gave what I think is the first social media marketing class at MPE, and I can remember me saying, you know, that social media is going to be, not only is it the cheapest, most efficient way to get the most attention to your business, but if you don't use it, guys like me are going to be able to pull the rug out from under a 50-year business in a heartbeat, because your customers are either going to move on or pass away, and there's going to be new customers, and their attention is going to go a different place. It's not going to go in the phone book. It's not going to go in a newspaper classified, right? I mean, it's not going to go on a banner at the Little League baseball field. Like, that's not what's going to do it. What's going to do it is me showing them a video of actually how we do it, what we do, why it's cool, what fundraisers we're giving to, all this stuff. And this is that same concept. It's like, sure, you can do it. It can get done that way. Don't get me wrong. It can get done that way. But part of it is I think some of it, the fear of change too, right? And that's the same thing with social media. It has a fear too, like turn the camera around and that's one of the scariest things ever, man. Turn the camera around and talk and having to hear your own voice and do all that stuff. It's one of the scariest things ever. Some of that plays into the software and tech side, no matter if it's Joist or Jobber or whatever they all are. Going from what you know to the land of what you don't know is one of the scariest things ever. And the transition of not getting intimidated is very important, I think, in both sides of that coin.
Yeah. And so, you know, there are a lot of softwares out there. But I will focus on Pavement Soft just because I'm one of the co-founders of Pavement Soft, just full disclosure.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I'll kind of give you the history of Pavement Soft. So Pavement Soft was called Bid Package for a lot of years, and we developed this at Brothers Paving and Concrete probably, I'd say 12 years ago we started. And you know, me wanting to be lazy, I don't like doing things over and over again. I'm not going to call me lazy because I'm not lazy, but me wanting to be lazy, I don't like doing the same thing over and over again when I don't have to. I don't like doing mindless work. I don't like doing stuff that doesn't move the needle for me.
Right.
So, and this will be a debate forever between Paul Batista and I, because we're the two co-founders whose idea Pavement Soft was, and it doesn't matter because Pavement Soft is here. So we started just like everybody else. We had an Excel spreadsheet that Paul actually put together. It had all of our rates and all this stuff in there, and it was really cool. And you know, and this was back in the early days. It's like, man, what if we could get that stuff that we just put in to go over to a proposal template, right? This is like long time ago.
Yep.
And nobody really had that. And it was like, I bet you we can get somebody to build that. So we hire this guy that comes in, and he was able to take all the stuff that we just did on the Excel spreadsheet and just push a button and pew, it's on a proposal. Oh. Now, today it doesn't seem like that earth shattering, but back then it was like, holy hell, this is like,
yeah, we did. We discovered fire. We did it.
So it got there, and we're like, man, we don't need a lady at the front desk sitting there typing our proposals all day, which we did. She'd answer the phone to do the proposals. Now, of course, we never got rid of her, but you know, she didn't have to do that. So that was Gen 1, right? It was Bid Package. It was on a FileMaker Pro server, and then we're like, man, what's the next thing that really hurts us? Well, when we get a job now, we have to go back and we've got to do all the job packets and the photos and make sure the work order's right and the guys know what to do. And whole crap, that was like a year ago I bid that job. How am I going to remember? I'm going to have to drive all the way back out to the job and look at it all and try to remember all this stuff if you didn't have good notes, which I never did. You know, it was all right here. I'd put it in and it was gone. So then I'm like, that's the next pain point. Well, guess what? What if when we're doing the estimate, why don't we capture all that? How many trucks we need, how many tons we need, what plant's it coming from? Bam, 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 bam.
Yep.
And let's just push it, and it goes to a work order with no pricing on it. So now the field can use.
Yeah.
That's a novel idea, right?
Right.
Let's just take this information and put it over here. So bam, bam, bam. Now we have 3 modules,
Yeah.
right? And we started watching our guys, I mean, just go crazy. Back in those days, we were probably doing about $20 million worth of volume a year with our company. We had about 6 sales guys.
Yeah.
And doing very well for again, this was a while ago.
Yep.
And so we got those 3 phases, and now the sales guys were able to go from 20 million to $38 million in 2 years.
Efficiency. It was all
and it was all efficiencies. We didn't have to hire any more guys. Now we had to hire more crews.
Yep.
But we didn't have to hire more guys. Okay, so now let's take this and let's add something to it. What are we going to do now? How about a schedule? How about, when we find these jobs, we hit one, it goes to a backlog report. Now we can just drag and drop onto this schedule. And what happens if it rains? Oh, we just move it over instead of on our whiteboard like we did for 20 years.
Yes.
Erasing it, you're writing on this and you're erasing it with this arm, right?
Yeah.
Or what happens if it rains 3 days? Yeah, what happens if it rains 3 days in a row? Oh my gosh, now I have to erase everything and move
again. Again. Yeah.
A nightmare.
Yeah.
So we were able to now quickly drag. And then now we have 4 modules. Then we go to 5. What's the 5th module? How about let's capture job cost at the field level? Oh, that requires a mobile app. Let's go ahead and develop a mobile app. So now the foremen are in the field. They have units, no pricing. And it says they're supposed to lay 340 tons of asphalt today. At the end of the day, they put in, I laid 329 tons. Awesome. They can see where they stand. You have 41 total hours to do this job in. They came in at 43. Damn, I missed it. Okay, next job, what are they going to do? They're going to work a little harder to get there. Trucking, materials, all that stuff. Once they were able to put that in there, now we were able to go from 38 million to 60 million. Yep. 2 more years.
But made operations more efficient.
Everybody
wow,
became more efficient. So then, okay, we have a product that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, and I remember when it hit me, we were opening bids. It was a bid day, and this is before it was available to the public.
Yep.
There was, and I had a friend of mine that's a contractor that always would ask me to give him the software. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. Well, then we were doing a bid opening. He was there, I was there, and another guy was there. It was a parking lot for an HOA. He was at 91,000. I was at 89,000, and contractor 3 was at 62. Okay. So we're looking at each other. So I pull up Pavement Soft, and I'm looking at it. Now we changed the name to Pavement Soft at this time. So it's a bid package of Pavement Soft. So I pull it up, and I'm like, there's 67,000 in costs.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, this guy does not know what his cost is
doing. Yeah.
So at that point, the aha moment came to me. It was like, we need every contractor, every paving contractor in the United States to have this. So my thought originally was, let's just give this to everybody, not because I'm looking to make money, but let's give everybody. These are all the cost blocks: your material, your trucking, your labor, your overhead. So at least everybody, when we go to bid day, is going to really know what their costs are. Now you can choose to bid it wherever you want.
Right.
But anybody that's going to bid a job for 64,000 when their cost is 67, and I'm a large company, I can get asphalt cheaper than this guy. There's no way. There's no way he's doing it for that. So I said, we ought to just give it. We ought to put it out there and give it to everybody. That was the mindset. That way, at least everybody will have it. Well, with that came a challenge, because now we had to put it on the cloud. We had to redevelop Pavement Soft, put it up in the cloud. backed up by AWS and all of the security stuff, and it costs a lot of money to do that. So you can't just give it away. So
Right.
there's got to be some price that somebody is willing to pay for it. That's how Pavement Soft started.
Cool.
And now we've got, I mean, there's thousands of users every day on there, about 500 companies.
It's one of the premier leaders in our industry for what people use, right? I mean, you can get to a certain size. Like for us, we're switching this year, and I don't even know that for me, it was just the next step, right? For the guys, for simple use, for the guys in the field, for the ladies in the office that are going to be there. You literally, it's like anything else. It's like, yeah, you can seal coat out of buckets, but then all of a sudden you have more jobs than what you can do. You're going to need a tank, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, well, you're going to need to spray. Like you can't do parking lots by hand. We're not going to be efficient, right? You got to keep bumping up and bumping up and bumping up. And even if you do like we're doing it, right? Because not to say like where we live, like this is that people are a certain way, but if you throw something down and are like, learn this, they're like, they close up and they're like, nope, that's not how it works here. It's hard enough to get them to follow me on Instagram or do whatever, let alone, learn an entirely new software. This is why they got into working with their hands. So they didn't have to mess with software. So for us, like we kind of got to ease them into it, put their toes in the water and deal with it a little bit. But in other areas, right. I got friends that use Pavement Soft, and they went from using a real simple software to like, this is what we use now. And boom, they all took to it and took really, really well. And that's kind of one thing that I've always recommended, like feel everything out. Like I got to look at Pavement Soft, right? And you let me in there and take a look at it, and I got to mess with it and everything. And to me, I'm like, whoa, this is cool. Like this literally has almost, I always enjoy the mapping software within everything and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. And I mean, that's tech in asphalt. Like it's coming. Like my kids already have more of an advancement than some of the guys that work for us because it's coming. That's what they want to work with.
Absolutely. And you were talking about efficiencies. We became more efficient as we developed this. But when we really became efficient is when we got the mobile app. So now my sales guys, at any time when they're out on a job, right? We've got our regular mobile app. They can go there, they can bid a job, they can see all the schedules, right? They can right from this phone. So you just think of the advantage you have. You just met with the property manager of a shopping center, right? And while you were out there, you've measured some stuff up, you got it marked off, you took some photographs.
Mm-hmm.
That property manager leaves, you sit in your car, and in 5 minutes, you can have the bid done, proposal done, all the pictures attached, and you send it, and you call the property manager, say, hey, could you check your email? I sent something, I don't know if it's going through or not, right? It went through, but so they open it up and like, what is this? Oh, cool, did it go through? Yeah, that's the proposal for the shopping center. When you can do that, you've won 50% right there. Right? Because property managers right now, the biggest problem that they have is getting contractors to give them pricing in a timely manner. When you can do it from your mobile app while you were there, and it looks just like you would if you're sitting at your desktop. They are so impressed.
That's it.
And you're in, right? You might even be higher. Say, this is the service that I offer you. I'm here. I get it done. We're ready to do it. I've got all the notes. I've got all of my pictures. We're ready to go. As soon as you tell me, I'll have a crew out here.
Yep. I mean, that's one of the three separators, right? Is, to me anyways, is having your branding presence there, which I'm always a big proponent of. As soon as they want to type your name in Google, that there's more content there, quality content than they ever know, and they know that you're legitimate and you have a great background and great reviews. Second is how fast, right? With us, like with what we do with software we use, when we sell work, I want it there as fast as we can get it to them, right? Because we've already set up the third part, which is that when they call, they get a real human being, right? Like they get somebody there, like already there's that personal thing, like, oh yeah, we have somebody on it. And sometimes if it's not myself or somebody close, we'll have whoever it is stop by. And they're like, "Oh, you're already here?" Like, yeah, we're quick. And then imagine if you did it that way, right? You answer the phone quick, you get to the job quick, you make your personal introduction quick, but then it took 3 days to get the bid to them. They're gonna be like, something's off there a little bit. And meanwhile, whoever else did it got the bid there a day before you, right? Or that same day or whatever. And it's really easy to get them to just say, yeah, we want to go with you. If you're on the phone with them, they see the bid, they have the email, they correspond with it. They know if they're a manager of any kind or operations person of any kind, they know that if they put it on the back burner, chances are they're going to lose it. So most of the time, like you were saying, 50% of the time, they're just like, all right, that's within our budget. Let's go. Because they're not the actual owner decision maker, but they are the person that makes a decision with the budget that they've been given. And they're like, okay, we're in. Right. And boom, that as long as they said, yeah, we got it done, then they can go back to the owner or the CEO or whoever and be like, yeah, we already got that in order. We're ready to go. Like, man, now that guy's impressive. Our job, I always tell everybody, my job is to make you look good. Right. We have a huge client that we have here that's just behind the Blacktop Banter office now, thankfully, huge glass company where we live. And I always tell those guys, I'm like, my job is to make you guys look really good. Like, I can do that. You just get me the work and I can make you look really good. And that's what they want. I mean, if you can nail on those three things, gosh, you got a good foundation, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And back in the old days, a property manager would have 3 or 4 or 5 different properties that they deal with, right?
Yep.
Now it's so cutthroat, they might have 10 or 12. They do not have the time. And a lot of contractors get frustrated. I'm not going to give a proposal. Somebody's not going to meet me on site. There's some truth to that. But however, you really got to look at it with a different lens. You got to say, why can't they meet me over here? Because now, for the same pay, now they're doing twice what they used to do. So just deal with it. Okay, they're not going to meet you out there. How can you? Can we get out there? Can we do a video while we're out there and send it to them just so we can get that interaction?
Yeah.
Right? Because somebody's going to do it.
Yeah. More than I'm going to, buddy. I'm going to. I can promise you that much. Yeah. That's when they tell me they can't meet me out there, most of the time I realize they've probably adapted technology themselves at a high scale, right? So for us, that's when I pull out the tech suit, right? I'm like, okay, now we're going to hit them with this. Now you will get guys where, you can just kind of read them, their boots on the ground. Well, I want to show you what we're looking at. Like, okay, yeah, I'll meet you there. Yep, here's the time. Well, sure, I'll meet you over there. I'll have something in most of the time. Then we take one of our packets, we'll hand them everything with the pamphlets and papers and our certificates and insurance and everything for them to look at. But that same stuff is in a digital file too, that we just attach to our bids and give to them. So you really have to be multifaceted. And to be honest with you, if you're the old school guy that's doing it all on paper and going to go back and do your job costing on paper and then write your bids up on paper and do all that, I'm going to be in the door a week before you're there. And we both got called at the same time. Now, here's the thing. They needed the project done 2 days before you had the bid in there, but you didn't never to get that email back or call back because you were so late on getting the job to them. Literally, it's sad to say it, but it's how quick, how efficient can you do everything nowadays? And we as humans are becoming more efficient and more receptive to more efficiency, right? Like of course, like, dude, if you were back in the day, I can remember I worked for a roofing company growing up. And I remember them, luckily, like they pretty much adopted me and I lived at that house. I can remember them getting a call, writing it down on paper. The next day we would go do a job. Then if we weren't too tired, he would go out and bid the job. If not, maybe the next day we got to go out and do it. And if we worked all week, he didn't feel like it, he would go out that weekend and bid it. And then you'd bid that and he would have to mail them the bid or drop it off on our route the next week. And then they could decide, and then we could schedule it. That took 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. But that's how they did business. Like he did business that way. There's no way you can float that the same way nowadays. There's no way. Like you sure you might get one. Right. But you're not going to get the efficiency that you were talking about where you didn't have to hire more people, but we're able to scale 30, 40, 50%. Like it's a no brainer nowadays. So it is what it is. Uh, so through all the years, right, and through adapting, like you, 30 years, man, a lot's happened in 30 years, 29 years.
29, yeah, that's not good.
All right, easy. Um, a lot's happened, like not just within our industry, but the world, right? Technologies change and adapt and that type of stuff. What type of advice would you give somebody who is 2 or 3 years in, they're building a decent foundation, right, for what they're doing, and they do want to have 30 years in the industry. They do want to have a big, long, successful run at it. What would be the general overview idea and advice you would give to that person?
Um, Basically, always treat your business, no matter what size it is, like a Fortune 500 company. And what I mean by that is start with policies, procedures, playbooks. Start with all the things that these large companies have. And if you start that way, your foundation is going to be laid and it's a lot easier. Also, read a lot of books on business.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information. There's a lot of really good people that have made the mistakes, right? that know what not to do. Learn from their mistakes. So that's definitely the advice that I give anybody. And I do it right now when I do my consulting, right? When I talk to these companies, I don't care if you're $500,000 or $300,000 a year company, right? If you're doing seal coat driveways, great, right? That's great. Let's set it up. Let our employees understand what's expected of them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's create playbooks for every person, every role, not just what you have now, but what you see your company being in 10 years from now.
Yep.
And if you can see it and you can lay it out and you can dream it, you can achieve it.
Yep. You just reverse engineer that bad boy.
100%. And most people don't do it that way. They figure it out. And when there's a problem, they try to work through it. And then they're making mistakes that other people have already made. You don't have to make the mistake yourself. You can learn from other people's mistakes.
Cool. Yeah. And I think that's the greatest piece of advice. It allows you to not have to make those mistakes and be more efficient, right? I always say if I'm going to hit a problem, I want to be a big one. Like I want to be a big one and something I didn't see coming. Like we blew a motor in one of the seal trucks at the end of the year. And it's our workhorse, it's my baby. I love this. We built the business on it, right? It's created my lifestyle that I live. And they blew a motor in it. No idea it was coming. It just happens randomly. An injector stuck, blew that bad boy up. I was more calm about that than I was that the guys snapped an agitator off inside one of the tanks, right? Because they could have just stopped it. Like they could have paid attention and heard a sound or whatever. I was more mad about that we can fix cheaply and quickly, right? Than the one with the motor, which was a big deal because we could have avoided that, right? By just sticking to the protocol, sticking to what we know, right? Being aware. And it's one of those things, man. It just it's the way it goes. All right, Shawn. So if people want to learn more about Shawn Boyce and what Shawn Boyce is up to and where he's going, where can they find you at?
Well, we're Brothers Paving. I mean, we're always there. And Instagram. I'm on Instagram. It's just
LinkedIn. I enjoy Shawn Boyce on LinkedIn myself.
LinkedIn's great.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is great because it's more industry specific than the other stuff. I don't like to put a lot of content out there because there's a lot of people that do that already. I put enough content out there that we're relevant.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn is absolutely the place that I go for if I need to find somebody, if I need to do something or learn something. LinkedIn is definitely the place to go. And yeah, I'm there on LinkedIn, and it's just you can find me there and
hit a DM, ask a question if you see something or whatever. I prefer LinkedIn. For me, for intellectual content. Like I like to see people that are performing at a higher level than I am, what they're looking at, what they're posting, what they're doing, that type of stuff too. So I prefer that one, but at the same time, I just like to look at cool, interesting stuff on Instagram as well. And then I like to see what all the young bucks and boys are over to on some of the other platforms and stuff too as well. But for sure. And then also, let's not forget MPE this year.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
gonna be there too.
Come see us. It's going to be a good time. You know,
Yeah.
like I say, I always like having a full house because I learn from other people in there. I'm learning every day. No matter how many times I've done this, I learn every single time I talk to somebody or consult with somebody. I'm learning. And I would love for you guys to come and join me at MPE and let's learn together.
Yeah, I let the guys with all the brains do all the learning, and I just do the entertaining. So on Tuesday night, we're having that Blacktop Banter event. If you're going to be there Tuesday, we'd be glad to have you come. I think I probably didn't rent a big enough venue, judging by the way it's going, which is a good thing.
That's a great thing.
It's a great thing. I'd rather be shoulder to shoulder with people I love than be spaced really far apart, social distance that we don't have to do anymore. So I'm excited for both those. All right, I'm going to cut this deck. This is a pod deck, and we're going to ask Shawn a fun question. I always like to do it on camera so you don't think I cheated and asked like a crazy question. What talent would you most like to have?
Music.
Really? That's where it's at?
I would love to have musical ability. My wife is a professional musician. She plays piano. She's a piano teacher. She's been for, years. She's an accompanist. My daughter sings like there's nobody's business. My sons all sing well. My wife sings fantastic. I got zero musical ability. I sing in my truck a lot. Yeah. I mean, I love to sing. It just sounds terrible.
Well, I got you. I got you. All right.
I would love that.
Musical talent. Well, let's start with the bongos or something. Just keep some rhythm.
Play the spoons.
That's right. Play the spoons.
Well, I will say real quick before we roll, this Christmas, actually all last year, I kept telling my wife and my kids, I wish I had Rock Band. I remember when my kids were young.
Yes.
Right. And I actually started feeling pretty good about myself because I was able to like hit the beat on the Rock Band. Well, of course, they stopped making that like in 2006 or something. Yeah. But I remember my kids doing it. Well, this Christmas,
they gave everybody hope and then took it away from them.
Yeah. My wife surprised me with an entire set of Rock Band. Now, of course, she had to eBay.
Put everything together
and find stuff that worked. But since Christmas, my family, my kids, my daughter-in-laws, that we've all been over here playing Rock Band.
Cool.
And I'm starting to get my musical talent back.
There we go. Well, that was a good gift too. That came from the heart.
It did.
Piece that together from the internet from around the world. So there we go. Once again, technology saving the day. All righty. Well, for myself and for Shawn Boyce over at Brothers Paving and at Pavement Soft and at National Pavement Expo, this is Blacktop Banter, episode 93, where always, always, always we speak asphalt. Peace.